Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Emily Moyer and this is Internal Alchemy. And before we get started with our wonderful guest, I just want to remind you, if you are watching this on the Off Planet Media YouTube channel, please also go over and subscribe to my own YouTube channel. It's Emily Moyer. All of my content appears there and it always appears there before it appears here. So thank you very much and on with the show. My good friend Chris Kehler is with us tonight. This will be his first appearance on the Internal Alchemy show. He's been on Off Planet Radio many times, and he sent me an email today saying, "Can we do a show tonight?" Which had not been in the book in the plans for me, but I was like, well, "Why not?" So I'm assuming he has something either interesting and exciting to share about a discovery, or something he really feels needs to be put out there. So Chris Kehler, welcome back.
Emily, so good to see you, my dear.
Yes, always nice to see you. So what's going on, man? You're up there in the very obedient north. Canada, right? Winnipeg.
Very obedient north. We're so obedient we only have 13 cases of COVID. That's how obedient we are.
Right. So you're the second Canadian I've talked to in the last few weeks, and
lucky you.
Yeah, I like Canadians. You guys talk funny. I like it.
We're okay, eh?
You talk funny and you're nice, right? There we go. All right. So, of course, people know you from all of your, energy healing work and whatnot. So I assume that you have some sort of things you want to talk about in that physical, energetic sort of realm of things, but also you're living in the same crazy, very schizophrenic, weird world that we're all living in. So I'm sure you have thoughts and everything else. So where would you like to jump in, my friend?
Well, you know what? There is a lot of stuff happening now. You and I, we get along so very well. So we talked about doing a show for a while. So I thought, tonight's the night. My family's gone off to the camper. It's so nice in Winnipeg right now. I'm stuck at home working. I thought, who better would I love to talk to than my good friend Emily? So
absolutely.
Now there is a lot of stuff happening within the energy realms, within the planet, within the grids. So there's so much happening, and everybody right now is definitely looking at things at surface level. All the reports of how many viruses, the reports of death, the riots, the protests, this, that, the other thing, Russia involved with it. I mean, there's so many things going on at a surface level that everybody looks at. But where I come from is going to that other level where things happen that affect the surface level, if you will. So now, as you mentioned, my healing work is very in depth with working with source. Source being knowledge of the universe, the good energy that's here to help us out. Not God, the guy with the big gray beard, not Jesus, not that kind of stuff. This is more of a let's call it the mathematical grid sector of things that are happening. Okay.
The geometry of manifestation.
Boom! Now you've done it. Now you're gone and blown the door wide open.
Real quickly, before we go any further, can you check your mic setting and see if you can turn it up a little bit? Because a lot of people lately have been complaining on YouTube that the volume is so low, not just for me, but it's going on with everybody. Like YouTube is throttling volume.
Does that seem a little better?
One more time.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Is that loud? Yeah, a little. If you can check, if you go to even on Zoom, sometimes Zoom turns it way down. Like check where the little microphone is. There's a little arrow pointing up, and see if you can make sure it's up at least 3/4 of the way, if not all the way.
Audio settings. We can go there. Oh, look at that. Output level, input level. Yeah, we're about 3/4. Let's go all the way up and blow everybody's ear.
Better. There we are. Perfect. I just want, people often complain that I'm louder than the guest, and well, I like to be heard. I don't need to be louder than the guest. So, the other thing that I want people to notice, because it's probably coming through on camera, is anytime I ever get on the Zoom or the Skype or anything with Chris, the lights in his back room start flashing, and he says he can't see it on his end, but everyone can probably see it because it's kind of happened like 4 or 5 times already. I don't know why this is, but there's obviously some voltage going on here.
Well, you have to know that this is my office. This is where I work 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, and of course there is energy here that is consciousness, and well, it might play with the lights a little bit. I don't know.
All right. So back to the geometry of manifestation.
So basically, okay, so things are happening. If you're looking at the surface level, if you look at the timing of everything, okay, the virus, all of a sudden the protests and riots, you know, George Floyd, thank you for giving up your life to have this happen. There's so many things happening at a higher level of ascension. What is ascension? Emily asks. Ascension is us humans that are able to shift into a higher level of consciousness, basically getting away from all the dark side of things, the dark energy, the evil satanic stuff, the reptilian stuff is what we're getting away from, so that we can live in peace and harmony, be able to manifest and not have bad things happen all the time, and not have to put up with all of the things that come along with living in a reptilian world, greed, all you know, the pedophilia, all that stuff. Yeah. It has to end, and the ascension process is basically here to help get us away from all that. So if you start looking back now, the ascension process is something that's been put in place for a long time. We tried ascension back in 1918. What happened? Spanish flu. Hey, let's stop ascension and start the Spanish flu. Let's start a world war. Let's start a second world war. All these things that go on that draws people attention away from ascension is that's what it does. It lowers our vibrations so that we don't ascend. Ascension is very much a personal thing. Light switch isn't going to flick and we all go up into the air and ascend.
Only if we're in your office, that's going to happen.
Well, go on to the party. Come on, the party's on right now. Let's go. but ultimately, it's something that everybody experiences differently. It's something that we all volunteered to be here to participate in because we want to ascend. Now the problem with that is when we agreed to come here, we agreed not to ascend. Okay, so that's what we said so that we could be here. Otherwise, the reptilians would say, "Get away." It's the reptilians that run everything. It's not God. It's not Moses and stuff like that. It's a reptilian planet. Okay, and I think a lot of people, I'm preaching to the choir, and that's the way it is.
Okay. So now, quick question. Let me just two things because I don't want to miss them before we go. I think you and I have talked about ascension before, and I've challenged you on it. I was glad to just hear you say that ascension is a very personal thing because that's been, you know, the idea of ascension has been really just made into caca by the New Age movement, right? And this idea that we're all going to ascend together and that you don't have to do any work, all you have to do is think positive thoughts and all that fucking bullshit, right? Like they've really made ascension, like they've turned it into like something stupid, right? It is a very personal, a personal process that requires, like work. And work doesn't mean you have to struggle necessarily or be in pain, although sometimes there is a little bit of that. It means you constantly have to be working on being in alignment with who you say you are, what you say you want, the things you say you believe, and the highest version of yourself that you're trying to get to, right? So, like in that sense, I can get behind that idea. And I do agree with you, the opportunity for those types of things, whether it's sort of what's going on vibrationally on the planet comes around every so many years, right? There seems to be more of an opening and then things happen and it changes. So I agree with you on that. And then when you say that this is a reptilian planet, is it a planet that was created by reptilians? The reptilians are one of those things that I've challenged you on that before. And I have issues with the reptilian thing because I find a lot of people who aren't doing their work just blame things on the reptilians, right? I'm not saying that there is no reptilian presence on this planet because that is ridiculous. We obviously have an elite that certainly lead from the reptilians part of their brain, right? So however far you want to carry that out, whether you actually think there are shape-shifting aliens here or not, it is definitely true that our planet has been guided for a long time by people who are acting from this primitive point in their head, right? Their primitive part of their brain. So I don't like when people blame everything on the reptilians because a lot of those people are still eating crap and not doing their work and all that kind of stuff. But there obviously is some sort of influence going on here that isn't normal of the normal humankind. And And so was this planet created as a reptilian planet, or was it infiltrated? Was it taken over? Was there some sort of prison put around it after that happened? How did this become a reptilian planet?
Okay, now that's a good question, which I really don't have an answer for. But if you look back through all of the archaeology of the planet, all of the symbols, all of the ancient buildings that are here, you really have to think about civilizations. So let's take the reptilians as a civilization.
Okay.
And let's go back from there. So how many other civilizations were here before the reptilians came into play?
Okay, so you don't think they created the planet?
No.
They took over at some point.
No, there's a garage down the street that created the planet. It's a planet that was formed by, I'm not going to say Big Bang because that's, silly.
Isn't Big Bang a client of yours?
Is a little Big Bang?
I remember when you told me that you had a client that was the Big Bang.
We did, and we discovered that this client carried the energy of the Big Bang.
Okay.
now you got to look at when I get messages like that, it's a metaphor.
Yeah. Well,
Big Bang, the beginning of something.
One time you told me that I was carrying within my DNA the soul of the savior of humanity, and I was like, "Fuck, that's a lot of responsibility. I'm not taking that one serious."
Let me tell you something. Now, I've got hundreds of clients, and we from time to time see these things within clients that they're carrying a type of energy, a message of some kind that needs to be handed over to source for the ascension process to go further. So when I say you're carrying that energy, it doesn't mean that you got a big staff and a big robe and you care. It means that you've come back.
I do have one. It's in the closet. I'm kidding.
So I mean, everything we're going to talk about tonight are all things that I find when I'm dowsing. It's nothing that I'm cherry picking out of websites and other podcasts to make up my mind. It's all things that I find in people. So when I say there's a reptilian present, there's a reptilian energy that needs to be moved out. And when I move that energy out, somebody feels a lot better. So everything we're going to talk about tonight are all things that I myself encounter and work with that energy to help people with all different types of health problems, you name it. And these energies are all involved.
You see those lights flash?
Bye, Mr. Reptilian. I remember one time when I was doing some research, I'm dowsing, and I come across this reptilian, and it's 13 feet tall, and it's a big white, grayish white reptilian with huge wings. And I could feel the energy. And just as I found it, my wife opened up, we have these huge, tall cabinets in our kitchen. She opened up a cabinet, and something that was up on the top shelf that should never have fallen off, fell off and almost hit her. And I'm like, okay. And then that night in my shower, I went, got up in the middle of the night to go pee-pee, and I could feel that thing in the shower watching me.
Wow.
Oh, and I'm not, when it comes to energy, I'm not a big sensitive. I don't notice everything. If I tune into it, I can sense it. But that thing was like buzzing out at me. So I gave it one of these, time to go, and it left. But I've got pictures of stuff that I've taken myself that it's like, what can that be? That could be nothing else but some kind of entity, some kind of going on that's happening all around us. So the reptilian planet, let's say reptilian run planet. Watch the movie Jupiter Ascending.
Oh yeah, no, totally. That is very close in many regards to what's happening, what's happening here, what's happening now, and how it's happening. And there's plenty of examples of the geometry of manifestation in that movie for sure. But the ability to freeze time, to have things happen outside of time, I think more and more, it's been a topic of conversation over the last couple of weeks, both with some guests on a Strange Mosaic show, and then the ongoing series I'm doing with Michael Wan about Project Kids, right? And this idea of some of these like bases and stuff where projects have taken place, about really there's no time down there. They're really able to sort of play with time dilation, time filtration, and that's why it seems that somebody can have a lengthy experience when it seems like maybe they were only gone for a few seconds or a few minutes or whatever, you know, and that they show that in that movie as well. There's all sorts of stuff there. I agree. Everybody go watch that.
Well, I know we're kind of going all over the place here, and that's okay. It's going to be a good conversation.
Yeah.
Now again, personal experience. I've got two clients. One is actually a student, and she's in Los Angeles, and she's able to phase in and out of time to avoid an accident, to avoid danger. So she'd be driving in her car on the, I don't know what big highway you got there, and all of a sudden there's a big accident. She's going to die. All of a sudden they're on the other side of the accident. And it's happened more than once, okay? Yep. And she's like, everybody's in the car going, Mom, what just happened? And that she's able to time shift, time jump, bilocate, whatever you want to call it. And then I've also got a friend in Winnipeg where I live who has done it also. And what I have found is that there are some rare genetics involved with this. Yep. That through their DNA, they have this mechanism. Yep. And it boils down to an Atlantean DNA. We call it mermaid DNA, but it's an Atlantean connection with their DNA. So it's some crazy stuff going on out there. If you open your mind and have a look.
Some of those kinds of experiences and those type of things we've talked about in association with underwater programming in the projects, which goes to not only mermaid kinds of DNA, but things related to dolphins and octopi, and there's various things that can happen with that kind of stuff. But I have this book, I have this book that talks about this sort of composite group entity that somebody used to sort of channel, right, called the Farns, that's someone that I knew. And they talk about, there's a particular name that they call these mermaids that can sort of like do that, like wormhole or time tunnel travel like that. And they call them the Freshono, but yes, it's a leftover from Atlantean kind of thing in their realm as well. So yeah, it's they also, like, that group of mermaids or whatever, supposedly, like, they're sort of jokesters or tricksters. They like to, like, you think you're looking at them over there and all of a sudden they're over there and then they're there and they're there. So yeah, that makes exact sense.
Yeah, that's, that to me, that was a very interesting fact. And then with the same person, through that DNA, and I've told this story a million times because it's such a good and real story, is that she's from Germany. Her mother was in Germany on her deathbed. They had done the last rites. They arranged for the crematorium. She calls me up and says, Chris, can we do a session for Mom? I says, okay, no pressure. So we did a session. The next day, she got up and walked out of the hospital.
Yeah.
The doctors are like, who are you? What are you doing in this room? She's like, I'm leaving. I'm going home. Wait a minute. And they were just flabbergasted.
And she's still alive?
She's still alive. She's living in a care home. We did another session on her. She took her walker and threw it away. So I mean, through that rare genetic DNA, the Atlantean DNA, there's a lot of things that are possible. So if you look at the human factor of things, if you look at what the gray aliens and the reptilians have done to our DNA, they've suppressed a lot of these abilities of manifestation and of using your mind to change things. So as we start to wake up, that DNA starts to wake up. And as we realize how powerful we really are, these reptilians are shit scared, baby. They know that their days are numbered and that we're going to think them out of existence.
Mm-hmm. Have you read, there's a book called The Right Use of Will. Have you heard of this book?
No.
So there's lots of interesting stuff in this book, right? And like anything, there's some stuff that I think is nonsense, but I think there's some stuff in there that is like, wow, that is really like prescient and poignant and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things it talks about is how, like, humans' spirit and will got separated and started denying one another. And that Atlantis was a society that was sort of founded on spirit, and it got out of control there and denied the will. And so then that led to sort of its downfall, which came after the previous civilization, which had been Lemuria, which was focused only on will, to the denial of spirit. And then that led to the downfall of that civilization. And each of these are in denial of sort of the other. So Lemurian, even though in the story it's told sort of like one after the other, it could also be thought of as occurring at different vibrations, and that what we, sort of where we have to get back to is sort of the harmony between will and spirit. And right now you can see, you can see it in political parties. You can see it in, the stuff just going on with like riots and the celebrities and religious folks and all this kind of stuff, that you can see that imbalance. Like it's one group of people is more towards one thing, one is towards the other, and they're each in denial of like the balance that needs to be obtained sort of with the other. And we're seeing that play out in our world now again. I think we might be in Atlantis right now, the last days of Atlantis, or the last days of Lemuria or whatever, right?
Metaphorically, yes. I spoke to the lady who wrote the Matrix.
Yeah.
I forget her name.
I know.
Yeah.
I had a very weird experience with her. But
yeah. My friend Hayden gets a hold of her, and she's willing to talk. So he gives me her phone. I call her up. She answers the phone. Hi, how you doing? And it was, kind of an interesting conversation, to say the least. I felt it a little aloof in a lot of ways. But the whole concept of the Matrix, everybody starts thinking about the Matrix. Well, this must be a thing. But everything is metaphoric in its own little way. So the blue pill, red pill. So when it comes to all of that Lemurian, Atlantean stuff, are we in that end game? It could be metaphoric for something. So what she told me was, we're playing out Sodom and Gomorrah. Mm-hmm. Okay, which is like, I have nothing to do with that, but it's a metaphor, okay, in certain ways. So the acting out of things in certain ways might pertain to that story. So one could maybe get into that story and read it and go, oh, I know what's happening next. So that's kind of where we look at with metaphors in that respect. It is something you have to really discern the information you get.
It's interesting you said that you had an aloof feeling the whole conversation. I had this weird experience where she contacted me, or someone representing her contacted me requesting that I interview her. Like, it was like, right? And I just took me a couple of days to get back to her because I just hadn't, whatever. And in that period of time before I had a chance to get back to her, they emailed me again, getting upset with me for not responding quickly enough, and that I must think I'm too good, and that's so of course then I don't want to answer, so then I get another one, and it was very bizarre. And I was aware of her before that, and it's something I might have entertained was interviewing her, but that was the weirdest experience. So interesting that you sort of felt aloof around that energy as well. It very much put me off,
almost like she might have made everything up, but I mean, she did come up with the story, and it was screenplayed by Spielberg or whatever that guy's name is. So I mean,
brothers, they're the Wachowski sisters now.
Okay. but so to me, it was a conversation that was like, you're giving up a little too much.
Yeah.
You're not very discerning. So I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah.
But she did mention that whole thing about Sodom and Gomorrah. I said, well, you know what? I guess that could certainly be in certain ways. So metaphorically speaking, here we are.
Yep. All right. So that's where we are. So we're in this situation with the reptilian. You there? Or are you frozen?
Right.
Okay. All right. So what's how is that sort of playing out with what we're seeing right now?
Okay, so what we're seeing right now, of course, is an attempt at ascension. So now the reptilians are making things happen to lower our vibration.
Okay.
So if you look at now, let me back up just a second. When I started doing this woohoo stuff, before I was doing this, everybody knows the story. I was in the printing industry, 28 years of my life. It was my profession. I loved doing it. And when my first wife passed, I retired. So at 47 years old, well, what am I going to do now? And then I discovered this work. So I'm doing it, like a couple of years later, I'm able to read the letter chart and get answers. Okay, if I ask a question. So I'm asking, why me? Why am I here to do this? What's my purpose? What's my destiny? All that stuff. And the answer I got was, in the future, an accident at the virology lab in Winnipeg.
Oh.
Yeah.
And didn't this whole thing kind of start with something in Canada? Didn't the Lieber guy have some connection in Canada? It wasn't
there is an ongoing RCMP investigation, which is the same as CIA, FBI, I guess. That they're investigating somebody from the Winnipeg Virology Lab who went to Wuhan with some Ebola.
Interesting.
Okay, there is and they've announced it on the mainstream news that there's an investigation.
I remember that, yeah.
The Wuhan lab is a lab that takes viruses and weaponizes them, tries to make them stronger.
Yeah.
Okay, if you think this came from a bat, well, you're a baddie.
Yeah, I tell people gain of function studies are the new active shooter drills. Yeah.
So I mean, there's a war going on right now. China, the U.S. You know, there's a big freaking war going on.
So you knew this was coming because of that question that you didn't necessarily understand the context of. Yeah.
It gave me an answer, and I remember it to this day how clear it was. So that now, yeah, okay. So this is one reason why we're here. So am I fighting coronavirus? No. I've never even had a client with coronavirus yet. Nobody's called and said, I got coronavirus. Can you help me? I have a client who is in the ICU unit at the biggest hospital in LA, and she says, "There's nobody in here with corona."
So okay, so that's super interesting that you say that, because to this day I haven't met anybody that has it. Right? I have not seen a busy parking lot at a hospital. They have a coronavirus testing station set up in a parking lot at the park around near where we exercise every day. I've rarely seen anybody there, a car, even though it's been there for almost a month now. One day there was a full parking lot, and it was only because there was cop cars and a news reporting agency there, right? So they obviously were creating some kind of scene about that. The only thing that I've heard, like so I've known people who said that they knew someone, but not anyone who'd had a test, just people who happened to be ill and have comorbidities and something, or whatever during that time. I have no evidence that anybody I know or anyone who knows anyone I know has anything like that. Do you think it's a real thing, or do you think this whole thing is entirely made up?
Well, that's a big question. Okay. I mean, there has to, my thoughts is that this is just the seasonal flu that is being taken and torqued up so much that it scares that
weaponized by the mind,
weaponized by the mind and the will of the reptilians. Okay, so no, what's the name of your president? Gump Stump? What's his name?
Yeah, that one.
Pump Lump.
Yeah.
Why did all of a sudden?
Umpa Lumpa.
Why did all of a sudden he started getting all the information about how many cases instead of going to the CDC to go to another party? I think it's a military party, whatever. It was announced on our news that no more numbers from the CDC, now it goes to a third party. So what's going on here? Somebody's fudging numbers or something.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I mean, they've been doing that since the beginning, because right away from the beginning, they were offering more money. If you reported a coronavirus case, then you got a certain amount of money, and if you put people on a ventilator, you got even more money. So there was cause to do that. But basically, what's been happening is if somebody shows up to the hospital for any other reason and they test positive, which isn't even, they're not even doing a test that can confirm anything. They're just doing something that makes it so it's like a possibility. So even if you show up with a broken toe, but they think you have coronavirus, they put it down as a coronavirus case, not a broken toe case. And also, there's multiple kinds of tests, right? And if, let's say, you get both kinds and they come out positive, they count that twice instead of just once, even if you're the same person. So there's that. But then Robert also told me that he's done some research, and if you go and get in line to get tested, and you decide you get bored in line because it's taking too long and you leave, some of those people have received their test results, even though they never actually took the test. So something funny is going on.
No, and of course, you got to realize what's happening with the governments. I mean, there's so much conspiracy in the government, so much governments wanting power. I mean, look at the timing of everything. There's an election coming up.
Right.
There's all these things. You have to look at the timing. You have to look at other things behind this whole schmozzle about what it really is. Now, you look at agendas. Okay, so they want to take down the stock market. Well, I'm sure they've done that already. They want some people say they want to change the money from an oil back to a gold back. I mean, all these different things.
They want to get cash. They want a vaccine with a chip in it. They want immunity passports, all that crap. Yeah.
Well, apparently Russia has a vaccine now.
Ah.
Yeah.
How about that collusion?
It was on Russia Today, so it must be true. Another doctor says take hydroxychloroquine and this antibiotic, and but ultimately there's agendas, and number one is to create more sheeple. Do this, they do that. Okay, now they know that they can just tell people to do anything and they'll do it.
Yep.
All the unawakened.
They don't even have to have police to enforce it because all the Karens, the little mask Nazis, will do it for them. Yeah.
Well, that's basically it. So you have to look at all the possible agendas, and there's many. Okay, the reptilians are doing a culling before Ascension happens. All this stuff is going on, and there's people who are having these symptoms way before that even came about from Wuhan. It was my mother-in-law a couple of years ago almost died.
We were sick for a month in November or December. Yeah.
Yeah. Even before it was said to be released from China and spread from there. It was still all over the place. David Icke said him and his son were really sick before it was even a thing. So you got to know that now. Okay. So if let's take a look at another concept. Reptilians in the energy form, the big scaly ones, they're able to use their shamanic powers just to give it to you, just to do that. It can come to you as a spell, as a shamanic spell, a curse, whatever. They can intend it on you.
Okay.
If you have a certain genetic disposition, it can activate. They activate something in you to create this. Okay. Part of the work that I do is removing shamanic spells. Okay, shamanic meaning working in the second dimension with spirits of the dead and stuff like that, with demons and all that stuff. So this can happen. They can give it to you without you even having it. You can have all the symptoms and everything. And you can have it. So there's so many things going on at so many different levels with the different. When I talk to my guy Wayne, who makes all my tools, this guy is probably the biggest guy in energy on the planet. He says coronavirus. Why are you even talking about that?
Yeah, I agree with him. This is what I noticed going on right now. The level of synchronicity, telepathy, and manifestation that is available to people right now is immense. But so many people are consumed with racism and coronavirus that they're not catching any of that, right? And in order to be able to use your super spidey powers and stuff like that, you have to be able to breathe, to be able to be in flow, to be able to be in harmony in your body. So when you're masked up and you're agitated from watching the news all day long, or whatnot, that, it's just people are just missing it. Literally right now, I can say something and within 24 hours, that thing will show up as far-fetched as it is.
You talk about breathing. So now everybody gets pent up about this. You're wearing a mask and you're all tense. What are you doing? You're not breathing. Mm-hmm. Okay, if you're not taking those deep breaths, those deep cleansing breaths, the energy isn't flowing properly. Just go to Wim Hof's website.
Yeah.
This is a guy who climbs Mount Everest in his gitch because his breathing techniques, he can change the metabolism with his body to change the heat direction and all kinds of. It's amazing what we can do when we're breathing. And I keep on getting told breathe because when I'm dowsing, I'm kind of holding my breath and waiting for the answer to come out, and I gotta breathe and I gotta keep the energy flowing in that regard. So yeah, you're wearing a mask. You're not going to die from your own carbon dioxide. Your blood oxygen levels aren't going to go down if you're wearing a mask. They might the tiniest little bit, but nothing that's going to kill you. Okay, so wearing a mask. If you need to go to Walmart and buy something, and their policy is wear a mask. Wear a mask. Don't be an asshole and say I don't need to wear a mask. But go ahead and wear one. It's not going to hurt you. But breathing is, if you don't breathe, you die, right?
Yeah.
Well, so we have to breathe. So you have to remember that the mask is there to restrict you from subconsciously from breathing, because of course you don't want to breathe in any germs. You don't want to breathe in anybody's disease.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things, so, like you said, right, people, I think it's for everybody to decide what hill they want to stage their battle on and whatnot. So some people feel like they really want to fight all this mask stuff. Others are like, okay, I'm willing to play the game for a few minutes, to go in and get my groceries. I think that's all personal decisions for people, how they want to handle it. But I see people wearing masks when they're outdoors exercising. That is definitely not good for you.
No, it's not such a good thing.
I see people wearing masks by themselves in their car, which to me symbolizes not only, so it's affecting their breathing, which is affecting all this other stuff, but it's also signal that to me that people are afraid of themselves, right? Which is a really good way to stop any kind of spiritual progress or ascension or however you want to refer to it, right? Is to put people in fear of their own self. They can't even be in the car with themselves, right? But I think one of the things that's been symbolically being presented to us over and over and over this year, both through the coronavirus thing with masking everybody up and also through the George Floyd incident is, and I've talked about this a couple times, this meme of I can't breathe. Right, this meme of sort of reducing the oxygen available to humanity, and I think it's for what we're talking about right here.
You know what? There is no such thing as a coincidence, right? I can't breathe wearing masks. There is a message in that metaphor for sure. So yeah, you're absolutely right on that regard. Is there going to be a second wave? Well, here's one wave. It'll just be more of the same wave. The media will just say it's a second wave. It's just more of the same wave. Again, in Winnipeg, we got down to one case. There's 1 million people in Winnipeg. It's not a small city, but it ain't no Los Angeles. But we got down to one case. All of a sudden, there was a Hutterite colony. There's lots of Hutterite colonies around us. All of a sudden, there was 8 cases on their colony. So that raised it up, and it made it sound like, oh, we're in trouble again. But no, we're still only at a few cases, and there's only been I think 110 deaths or something.
How locked down are you guys there? Are you guys?
We can go do anything we want, really. The movie theaters aren't open yet. We can go to the malls. The mall hours are different. There's social distancing with the chairs and tables for the food courts. I mean, there's still restrictions, but if we want to go and grab a case of beer and have some beef jerky, we're more than welcome to.
Do you think there's anything to this idea, and I've been saying this since the beginning, that this new religion of social distancing is to prevent technology and telepathy that could be happening for people during this period of time, or a sort of metaphysical kind of bump technology like they used to have with cell phones, where literally people could be exchanging files and figuring shit out. And so they want people distanced during this time because the human to human communication would be off the charts otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly getting into conspiracy now, aren't we? Lots of people say it's because now they can use satellites to pinpoint somebody. There's different reasons for distancing. Really, the whole, the 5G thing.
Yeah.
We don't have 5G in Winnipeg, so that's why we don't have any cases, right? I don't know. I mean, there's so many different concepts and agendas and probabilities. The best thing you can do is stay off Facebook.
Stay off Facebook? Yeah, for sure. Stay off Facebook, stay off Twitter.
Oh,
yeah.
It's the conspiracies are just crazy, and I've seen so many things that I just don't want to go on Facebook. I always post something once in a while, and I just want to stay off it because if it's on Facebook, it's fake, and I don't want my stuff to be fake. So if it's something really important, I'll go on there.
I won't get into any entanglement. I post my work there and kind of I like to support my other friends and whatever, but I will not get into any back and forthing kind of entanglement. With it, I don't like Facebook. I've gone 6 to 8 months, year at a time without even looking at it. And at some point I will probably go back to that when our sort of media stuff isn't so reliant on it. Let me ask you this. if you're not finding any coronavirus in your clients right now, and no one's contacting you saying they have coronavirus, what are you finding? What is going on here that is being sort of covered up by the coronavirus?
Okay, so very good question. So basically, when I'm working with clients, we start on Monday after having a nice weekend off at the trailer and a few vodkas and singing some high hos. So that we come in Monday, all of a sudden I start getting new direction to look for this and look for that. So this week has been very much removing judgment off of people.
Mm-hmm.
Reptilian judgment of Horus being the Lord of reptilians, gray alien judgment, different forms of judgment to lift off an overlay of judgment, to let this person come out of judgment. And then we're getting into stuff like if you're a star seed, we need to bring in photons of that area you're from. So if you're a Pleiadian, we bring in photons from the Pleiades and so forth, so that we can reconnect your body, that energy, so you can get some good energy instead of all of the stagnant stuff. I've got in my charts, okay, my charts, holy moly, son of a gun. I mean, these are my charts that I use every day, and they're beat up. I need a new set. Anyway, so I got a set of charts called viruses. Okay. I got about 250 different viruses in these charts. They never come up. Never. Okay. I got Morgellons in there. I got Corona. I got, you name it. The viruses, they get really deep into all different types of things. H5N1, XMRV, mice virus, shingles virus, virus program from satellites, chemtrail viruses, herpes zoster, Ebola. It's all here. It's all here.
Okay, so here's a quick question. So someone else who I've had on the show, Dr. Keysberry, she's not finding much in the way of coronavirus either, but she is finding a lot of EBV, Epstein-Barr virus, in people that has been sort of hidden or dormant until this period of time. And of course, that's kind of an interesting one. And what she says she's finding is a lot of unusual, unknown bacteria that in people. And so I'm just curious, do you find Epstein-Barr virus? What do you think about that? Never. Okay. So you guys have very different modalities that you work in. So
yeah, what I do find a lot of is nanobacteria.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
And I'll show you here. I do have a live blood analysis microscope.
Yeah.
That I used to use a lot, and you can actually see that nanobacteria in a blood sample. It's like tiny. The blood cell looks this big. The nanobacteria looks like a million times small. You can see it buzzing around.
Do you know who Cliff Carnicom is?
No.
So he's one of the guys who's done a tremendous amount of work both on chemtrails and some of the nanoparticulates that are in chemtrails, but also on the thing that other people call Morgellons, but he doesn't like to call it that because he doesn't feel like that is exactly what it is. What he calls it is a cross-domain bacteria, and it's incredibly small in size. So it might be something his work is pretty interesting. I don't agree with him about everything as I do with no one, but that what you're saying, this nanobacteria, that's kind of interesting. And he looks at it and under the blood slides and stuff as well.
So if you take somebody making an intent for you to get sick, so now that intent is here, it goes to your body, to that nanobacteria, and creates something. It's a building block.
Could it be activating some of the, so you were saying about the shaman before, or someone who's doing a spell, if there's some sort of dormant or other purpose cross-domain bacteria in your body, nanobacteria, and then it's activated by a spell or an intention or a shot of energy your way or whatever, right? Like that?
And then many times it's combined with a fungus. Fungus is gray alien, okay? They are basically walking, talking fungus.
Well, there's been a lot of, that's come up a lot in conversations with people about this as well, that whatever they're saying is quote unquote coronavirus may actually really be a fungal infection that they have no intention of wanting to heal, because you and I both know they love to let, candida and other fungal and yeast infections and things like that spread because that's actually the environment in the body that the, entities prefer to be able to sort of come in and control. It's the parasites love that.
Yeah, a warm, wet environment. The
Yep.
funguses love that, and of course, we're all sugar eaters, so we feed that fungus. Yeast fungus, kind of the same thing in different ways, shapes, and forms. So the fungus is very is a big thing that I find in people. Okay, that's huge. The nanobacteria. Geez, what else do I find? A lot of fourth dimension frequencies.
Okay.
Different frequencies that aren't vibrating properly within us is a big thing. So tons of energy components that are within us that boil down to like maybe one physical that we get to at the end of a session. I'm getting all kinds of interesting direction. So one direction I've been getting is to work in the QES of somebody.
Okay, which is the what? The quantum.
Okay, now here's how source works. I want to tell you this little story. So I'm gonna tell two quick little stories. So the QES. Now, one of my hobbies is I build high level quality loudspeakers. Okay, I'm an audiophile.
Yeah,
So,
me
so,
too. I
yeah.
like speakers. Yeah.
So when you're looking at a raw speaker, it has all these parameters. It has QMS, QES, QE. The E means electrical parameters. So when you take all those parameters, you add them up, it's the total Q. It's all in Q.
Okay.
So I keep on getting told QES. I'm like, QES? What? Wait a minute, I know what QES is. You want me to look in the electrical, don't you? And the source is going, yeah, look in the electrical. So of course we're all electrical.
Yep.
You got to start looking at different variables in the electrical. So where I'm going now is in the Walter Russell table of elements.
Oh yeah, I love that, Walter.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So in those table of elements, there's a lot of elements that are radioactive, and they are what the reptilians use to intend within you. So if you're a person that has a lot of electricity going on, you may want to tone down electricity, take out those elements and replace them with something good like astatine or something like that. So you start working within the elements of source, the elements of the reptilians, taking them away, adding them. Now your electrical system's got the proper mechanism for energy to flow properly.
Well, I've had the insight, and from what I said about, I just had it on my own, but I've talked about it with people, and they say, yeah, they've heard similar things from other people that are kind of similar to me that they've talked to about it. And that's the idea that like perhaps the periodic table, right? So you have a periodic table with all these various elements on them, and then there's like the lesser known periodic table that has even more. That actually like the Bible and some other like ancient spiritual texts and things like that people think are about quote unquote gods and their story and at war sometimes, like, you know, whatever, are really about what happens in the body when the wrong elements are present in the body together. And it's sort of a hidden code or a mythology that is sort of metaphorical, like we were talking about earlier. So what you're saying sort of lines up with that.
You know what, and what I find is that everybody looks at the same thing, but they look at it differently, so that your consciousness can understand it. So if I'm told to work in the QES, everybody's like, "What the heck is that?" So Source is working with me with what I know to help me understand all this stuff. If you ever talk to Wayne, if you ever able to get Wayne on this show, he'll go off on a tangent. Like make Ashiana Dean look like a kindergartner. Okay, this guy knows grids and grid structure and the connections between it all. It's amazing what this guy knows.
Well, maybe you can hook me up with him because I have some questions about grids and about geometries and different things and the way they work. I have a quick question that just because you brought up speakers, right? So I also like sound a lot, as I'm like techno music, and that's very based on, you know, the quality of the sound system and whatnot. So my favorite sound system is the Function 1 sound system.
We talked about this before.
Okay. So I was just doing a sort of a casual chat with a patron, but we recorded it because we thought it might be interesting. And at one point in the chat, we got into this Function 1 sound system, and we're pulling it up on the screen to look at it. And I realized that the logo, the symbol, the emblem for Function 1, which also looks exactly like what the inside of the speaker looks like, literally looks like this thing that I've been describing to people about when you're out in the desert and looking at the sky at night, there's these four-lobe shapes that are kind of like almost wallpapering the sky. And then there's a point in the middle where when you see things that you think are UFOs, it comes right through there. It is the exact logo of Function 1. So my feeling is that you can achieve certain vibrations or sounds or frequencies, and the people who make these speakers know this, that actually open up some of these grids and allow things to manifest through them geometrically.
Well, everything is sound, everything is vibration. Yeah. So of course now Wayne is a huge audiophile.
Of course. Yeah. Okay.
So he's telling me, okay, Chris, take your speakers apart and take a little sun ring, like one of these little sun rings, and hot glue it to the back of your speaker and listen to the change in music.
Huh.
Okay. Yeah. So we're taking music at that level. We're putting them on. He's got Cambridge tube amplifiers. We're putting them in the tubes, the sun ring around the tubes. We're taking music at that level and we're giving it some energy in order to change it. And it's a healing type of sound. And it also sounds, you can hear little nuances. Yep. When you're an audiophile, it's just like being a wine connoisseur. You can taste little differences. So now we take that concept, and when we make the rings, okay, the big rings, the little rings, they're soldered together. When we do that, we put a sun ring underneath the acetylene torch tanks in order for that energy to come through. Okay, when I make my minerals, okay, what I do is I'm using water, and I put the ball of water on top of a big sun ring to charge the water, and then I put the concentrate in and I mix up the minerals to get this high caliber energetic mineral.
I didn't realize you were making your own. I thought you were connected with somebody. I didn't realize you were making your own.
Yeah. We have every mineral that we can make. We got monatomic gold. We've got silver, platinum, indium. These are ones that you just can't buy anywhere. So we have all of these minerals. Then we got calcium, magnesium, all this.
Have you heard anything about vanadium and germanium? Do you do vanadium or germanium?
Yeah. I got both of those, yeah.
Yeah, because those are lesser known, and we're starting to find out about a lot of the interesting properties of those in our studies. Yeah.
Go onto my website, chriskehler.net, plug, and I've got all the minerals listed there, and a lot of the probabilities that you could experience when you're using these, or some symptoms you may have if you're deficient in them. So you might learn a bit from there. But if you start getting into minerals now, one of the elements that we work with is ruthenium, which is number 44 on the periodic table. And for the longest time, I was getting these messages. All of a sudden on my letter chart, it would start spelling out Soviet. I'm like, Soviet what? Soviet satellite, Soviet whiskey, I don't know what. And then one day I stumbled upon it, that the word ruthenia is Latin for Russia. So
and you look it up and it was?
Yeah, so they're trying to direct me to the word ruthenium.
Okay.
Which is like, how profound is that? To direct you in that way to find something.
Yeah.
So we've been using that when we give somebody gratitude of source, we add ruthenium within that as a catalyst to create a more flowing of energy of gratitude.
And what does ruthenium do? Like, what are the properties that are interesting?
Energetically, it's just a very high resonating element that resonates with gratitude very well. So what we've been using a lot within the energy grids of a person to create more flow is an element called astatine.
Okay.
That's on the Walter Russell periodic table. And that creates more flow in the grids.
Huh.
Like it gives it lubricant or something. We put that in the nervous system and within the grids of the person to create more flow. And all of these elements, I mean, everything in the universe is an element, has all these elements in it. That's the building blocks. So when you start, building something with the building blocks, you're going to get something that's more cohesive with what you're trying to work with.
So I think we would definitely agree that there's an agenda to make certain minerals unavailable or less available, right? And then to fill with ones that aren't so good for the human body, lots of things with that, right? So I think that some of this stuff with adjusting our minerals and really being aware of what is what and what we're intaking, because sometimes just a very little bit of something, right, that you're missing can really make a huge difference.
And indeed, for a lot of people, there's even deficiencies, from generation to generation. So if you ever see somebody with a big neck, eyes popping out, big tongue, that means they're iodine deficient.
Yeah.
Congenitally iodine deficient. So a lot of these deficiencies, many of them are just the soil is deficient in certain things,
Yep.
or through your genetics, or through a spell, or through the reptilians. They want you to be deficient so that you'll have a low level of vibration. So the concept of the elements, a lot of them are, if you take them, could be poisonous. Those are very much reptilian. You don't want to have those. So if you got aluminum, mercury in the brain, those two combined together create a different toxicity, and those are reptilian or Horus type elements that you want to remove and add better elements to replace it. We want to add source elements. So the concept of heavy metals is basically a spell from Horus, a spell from the reptilians for it to be there. Otherwise, your body would recalibrate and get rid of it and bring in the good stuff.
Well, because those particular elements, metals, or whatever, are really receptive to the energies that their frequency sort of generates.
That's it. Yes, they create the environment for that element to live there. Just like if you get a parasite,
yeah,
your body should just knock it out and you poop it out. But no, these parasites, they're there and they're protected. Your body says, "Oh, that's okay. I don't need to take care of that." But there's reasons why they're there and why your body doesn't get rid of it. Same as with everything.
Yeah. Okay. Before we wrap up this first hour, there's one thing that you said that I kind of want to tug at to sort of pull together this first hour. And that was that we volunteered to be here and that we agreed not to ascend when we came in here. Why would we have agreed not to ascend? And if we agreed to that, how do we overcome? Now, were we tricked into that agreement, or did we do the kind of like, all right, well, I'm going to say that because like I've often thought that like there's this process of where we're told that you're going to go in, and by going in, you're going to forget. And so you're not going to remember what you're doing, and you're going to have to sort of figure it out. And so we've left little breadcrumbs from ourselves. But if we've agreed not to ascend, how are we going to even manage that? So could you fill me in with what you're thinking?
Okay, so here's my concept of that. Of course, we want to be on this planet because of the humanity, all the good concepts of humanity, love, relationships, all raising a family, all kinds of stuff like that. A lot of benefits. Okay?
Chocolate, pizza, all that.
Yeah, especially the taco juice here. So of course we say, okay, you want to go on that planet? Well, you can't ascend. Like, okay, no problem, but we're ascending anyway. It's not like we tricked them. The planet's ascending, we're ascending.
So the natural human consciousness, our souls, our spirits, that is its natural, the natural way of it is to ascend. So even when we agree to not, we can't help it. That's our natural.
Well, you look at the Schumann resonance of the Earth.
Okay.
It's you can't help but resonate with it. Okay, it's either that or you get really, really sick.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's my concept. I mean, somebody else certainly may, different.
I definitely agree that we, like I said, in sort of my own narrative for myself and what I'm doing here, it's like, okay, like, somebody I knew came in here and got stuck, so I decided I'd come in here looking for them. And the rules of coming in here is that you don't get to remember why you're coming in here. So the only thing you can do is sort of throw a few breadcrumbs for yourself before you enter the game, and help you understand what you mean when you come across them on your path, what they mean. And so because of that, I find it very important to pay attention to synchronicities that are showing up, symbols that show up over and over again, because if there's something that is constantly showing up for you, is it maybe the sort of those few breadcrumbs you threw out for yourself before you entered the maze, right?
The big one everybody gets, you look at a digital clock and see 10:01, 11:11, 12:12. For me, it was always 10:01. And before I was doing this work, I even knew anything about it, I'm looking at the clock going, why the frig does it say 10:01 all the time?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Then my first wife passes away, and all of a sudden I get into this work and I stop seeing 10:01. Knock, knock, knock. Wake up, Chris.
Yeah, no, I've had a lot of things like that with times and with numbers, and I know people who see certain numbers on license plates. For me, it's become largely based around like symbols or just funny little concepts or things that I sort of play with or whatnot. But yeah, so that's kind of your yellow brick road back to the back out of this whatever the fuck this is, this container we seem to be in. All right, we're going to move on over to the Patreon side, so you can join us at patreon.com/Off-Planet Media for the second half of the show. But before we go, Chris, tell people where they can find you if they would like to hear some more of see some more of your work, try some of your stuff, book a session with you. Where can they find you?
Okay, my website is chriskehler.net. You can book sessions on my website, but I'm going to tell you right now, we're booked 6 months in advance. So my suggestion is just go to the end of the schedule, book a bunch of sessions, one a week for a couple months, and you got sessions. And then you can always look at my schedule, and the people always cancel because they book their sessions 6 months in advance. They forget they have them, so that it creates an opening. My system is automated through a company called Appointee. So when somebody cancels, it shows up on my schedule. I know nothing about it. Anybody is able to take that session. The products I sell all my energy tools, okay? Anybody who wants to buy some energy tools, practice some energy medicine, feel free. They're not expensive. They're well priced, and they're probably the most powerful on the planet. I teach what I do. You want to become a quantum healer? It's called True Quantum Healing. Go to the website, have a look at the course. It's $2,500. You get everything you need, and you get me helping you and become part of the group. We got 150 people right now in the group, and there's 6 of them who quit their full-time jobs and now do this full-time. So if you want to access another quantum healer, I can help you out with that, set you straight. I've got 3 people in the United Kingdom, 1 person in California, 1 person in Massachusetts, everybody's doing very well at this. So we can help you out in many different ways.
Awesome.
Look at the mineral. The minerals are amazing. We just came out with the line about 6-8 months ago, and they're doing amazing. People are buying them like crazy. The indium works great for your thyroid. Everybody's got a thyroid problem. I got iodine, I got indium. You take those 2, and things start to work a lot better in that respect. The minerals work to help interconnect the glands to each other through the internet grid in our bodies. So have a look at them. They're really amazing.
Yeah, one of the things I'm talking a lot about is learning to control our endocrine system, and having it be in balance because of your minerals is super important to that. So go check that out, guys. All right, we're going to see you in just a few minutes on the other side. Bye-bye.